Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here, my next Avatar weekly discussion topic video. This is going to be missed opportunities for Avatar The Last Airbender Book 3 Fire. Last one of these in the series, finally we're at the end of the series. So next week I'll be moving on to my top 5 Korra episodes, followed by my Avatar top 5 episodes, and then we'll get back into kind of more usual, more random topics each week in this series. So let's just jump into Book 3 Fire, the last one of these. The positives, of course, are numerous with this book. The main things I really like about it is that oftentimes with shows like this that are so popular, with the seasons 1 and 2, really develop a fan base. People care about the characters, the story, and are so invested going into the final season. So many times it happens that it doesn't quite live up to expectations. The season itself may be good, but that ending doesn't feel satisfying enough. But Avatar, I think, manages to nail it. Is it perfect? Completely perfect? No, there are little issues here and there, of course, as I'll get into. But it's really close. I think it ends the series really, really well, and that is something that you have to praise this show for. It's treated obviously as one of the best shows out there, basically, in terms of Western animation, and I think it's super well regarded even against anime and stuff like that, and live action shows. But it ends really, really well, and that is something you do have to give it praise for, because it doesn't always happen that the kind of finale of a really popular show comes off so well, but it does. And then just it really gets its final season right. It has so many of the show's biggest moments towards the end. People bring up the stuff Ozai versus Aang. It lives up to it, even though Ozai isn't a super strong character, in terms of his personality and stuff like that. He is an amazing kind of obstacle for Aang to have to overcome, just in terms of a sheer fight. That for Aang as a character, his arc has been more about his kind of physical prowess, that he's always had the kind of, since very early in the series, he's always had, for the most part, the mentality of being the Avatar. He's obviously had to adapt it somewhat as time has went on, but the main thing he's had to learn has been obviously mastering the elements and the physicality behind it. So him being able to go one-on-one against Ozai, and with what happens, it works, I think, really, really well. As I said, Azula, Zuko, Agni, Kai. The build of that relationship, that rivalry since season 2, works so well that there's so much intensity in that fight, because it's an Agni Kai to decide who's going to be the next Fire Lord, basically. And that has so much impact behind it as well. Then the airship stuff, obviously in the finale with the other team, Toph, Sokka, Suki, really, really cool also. Plus you have the invasion in the middle of the season. You have the Avatar and the Fire Lord, amazing backstory episode. You have episodes like the Southern Raiders, the Boiling Rock. So many of the series' biggest moments happen here. And for me, that just means, in terms of episodes, so many of the Book 3 episodes are high up on my list, and that's why I rate Book 3 so highly. So obviously we're here today to talk about missed opportunities, not necessarily positive, so I'm going to, from here on out, try to focus more on the kind of missed opportunities section of this, but of course I will bring up positives at times, because there'll be some bigger issues that some people have with the season that I don't. But let's get straight into it. I mentioned before that the way the show ends is really, really good, but not quite perfect. For me, the things that it kind of maybe misses the mark a little bit on are basically not fully resolving Zuko and Toph's kind of arc. With Toph, I have a much bigger issue with, because I think she is a character, come the end of the season, you kind of realize that, okay, as cool as she was, as powerful as a character that she was, she didn't really have the character arc that I think a character of that level, in terms of importance to the main character role, she didn't quite have the the emotional character arc that you maybe would have expected. I think within the show, they should have done something with her and her parents to touch on what's happened before. They attempted to do it in The Runaway, of course, when, with the help of Katara, Toph does send a message via Halki back to her parents, but we don't hear anything back about that. Come the end of the show, it's just Toph is involved in the celebrations at the end, during the coronation and stuff like that of Zuko. She's there, and we just end. And I have an issue with that because Toph, technically, by the end of the show, like, where's she going to live now? Like, Sokka and Katara can go back to the Southern Water Tribe. Let's forget about the comic story that happens after that, because obviously we know now. This is just talking about the series as it ended there. 321 was the last episode of Avatar, the last bit of canon content we were getting. Like, we could obviously assume, okay, Sokka and Katara have accomplished what they needed to, they can go back to the Southern Water Tribe. Aang and Katara are now in a relationship. So, Aang could go back to the south to live, or, something else. Katara can come to live with Aang in wherever he kind of plans to live. That with those characters, you can kind of really think yourself about roughly where they're going to be. But with Toph, it's kind of more complicated in that you kind of have to go like, wait, she never resolved things with her parents. There was the Halki message, but like we didn't see a response. She didn't mention anything about going back to her hometown, going to talk with them. What's she doing here on out? We obviously know that the group kind of stays together for a little bit. They don't exactly kind of go immediately back home the second everything's done. But especially with Toph, I feel there should have been something within the finale where during the celebration she kind of mentions that, okay, once the celebration is done, I'm going to go back to my hometown. I'm going to talk to my parents and see if they will kind of be more accepting of who I am now that I've played a key role in training the Avatar to kind of bring peace back into the world, and I didn't get like injured, killed in the process. That I was a valuable member of this team. I helped to bring peace back to the world. They have to accept that now. Just the setup that she's going to talk about them. Sure, you're not going to resolve absolutely everything. I don't think you had to have all of those really important moments with the characters at that point in time, but just a hint that was going to be part of her arc, I think would have worked. But I do think it should have been a more important aspect of her arc, because otherwise, Toph's arc is kind of just, she learns metal bending, gains friends for the first time, and that's kind of about it. It's her powers and the fact that she's kind of on her own with other people for the first time, not just with her parents. And you don't really resolve the fact that she actually ran away from home to go on this mission in the first place. So I think that is a little bit of an issue. With Zuko, I think reflecting on it now after a good few years of the series being over, it's a really, really weird move to end Zuko in the series with just, where's my mother? And Ozai, we don't really get his answer. It just creates a huge mystery. They don't really give you an obvious answer to it. And it's just like, wow, why would you do that with no obvious kind of plan to tell the story? At the time, obviously, like, we now know through the search what's going on, but like the search happened like 5 years afterwards. It wasn't that the search was planned to happen pretty soon afterwards. We know there was somewhat of a plan to, at some point, make like a TV special animation of something with Zuko's mom, Ursa. But obviously it didn't work, and then the comic kind of came into being. But that wasn't planned immediately. So it's definitely one I look back on and I'm just like, that always comes across really weird to me whenever I watch the finale now, that they just cliffhang on Zuko's arc. Like, I know a lot of people bring up the whole idea of like, they're okay with that sort of stuff because it's a mystery. We don't have to know what happened. Like, some stuff is just fine to be left open for us to speculate on. And to some extent I understand that, but for me that is with kind of more abstract things. That is not with like a really important thing to a character. Like the importance of Zuko's mother to him as a character, I don't think can be understated. And so I think leaving a very important arc like that just out, that like the potential for like a really important story, which the search turns out to be a pretty big important story, very different, So just them leaving the potential for that open, I didn't think was a great move. And I would have liked them to maybe the way they could have done this, I felt like, and have it still work, where like you don't tell everything, but kind of commit to at least giving you a hint as to where things could go, and at least leaving you feel a little bit satisfied, would be do it as you do in the show. Zuko, where's my mother? No answer from Ozai. Then you maybe cut away to somewhere we don't know about. You see this woman, and maybe it doesn't look like Ursa as we've seen her before. She's in a different place, but something on screen reminds you of Zuko. Something happens, like maybe she reads, hears news or something like that Zuko has been made the new Fire Lord, and she has some sort of reaction to that, and she doesn't know why. That would have been perfect, because you basically give us the answer that Ursa is alive, but there's something with her that we don't fully know about. And it would set up a story without telling you everything, but just giving us the answer that, like, oh, she's alive, she's out there. And then obviously present the idea of, oh, at some point he will go to search for her. As it is right now, it's just like he's kind of like asking Ozai, is my mother alive or not? And it's just a little bit kind of odd for me. So I know not everyone like has the same issues with that as I do, but for me it just is like, yeah, reflecting on it, it doesn't feel that great, those kind of little final bits there. But I think in general everything else feels, quite strong. Maybe they could have went a little bit more heavily on in terms of epilogue, aftermath stuff, but the key couples come together, the celebrations happen. Aang and Zuko are going to work together to bring kind of balance back to the world. It's like very hopeful, and they kind of accomplish what they need to. It's just, little things they could have done a little bit better. Other issues. I think just, like, I described book 2 as like the most consistent book of Avatar. Like, there's no real duds in book 2. Like some people you criticize the Tales of Ba Sing Se, Appa's Lost Days. As I said, placing those two episodes right next to each other really highlights that they're very different episodes than the rest of the season. And Tales of Ba Sing Se, obviously, like outside of one or two of those stories, is not really the best episode. Book 3, I think, manages to find a somewhat of a balance between book 1 and book 2, where it's maybe not the most super consistent, but it's got better quality episodes than book 1. In book 1, in the book 2 video, if you remember, I said that like book 2 does book 1 style episodes better. Stuff like the Cave of Two Lovers is a better episode than The Fortune Teller, because it at the same time presents the same idea. It's a Katang, romance focused episode. But in book 2, they made them better because they added the whole lore aspect to it, more importance to it. I think they continue that in book 3, in that similar styles of episodes, but they accomplish more to them as well. Like the headband is somewhat of a Katang-focused episode within book 3, but you have the subplot, obviously, of Aang going to a Fire Nation school, and the more plot-important aspect of why do the normal people of the Fire Nation, why are they okay with their nation going to war with everyone else and kind of taking over the world? Why is there no issue from within the Fire Nation with what's going on here? People opposing their own government and finding out about all the propaganda, the made-up history that the kids are taught in school. That adds importance to an episode that otherwise feels kind of on the level in terms of like the general plot of what an episode is. So I think maybe the episode quality is a little bit more up and down in book 3 compared to the super solidness of book 2, but at the same time as there's a few downs, like with Nightmares and Daydreams, perhaps The Runaway isn't maybe the greatest episode. There are also like some of the bigger ups, like you get the Avatar and the Fire Lord. You have the Day of Black Sun stuff. Like I said, as a slight criticism of book 2, it doesn't have the highest amount of like super big moments within the series, whereas book 3 does. Day of Black Sun, Boiling Rock, Southern Raiders, Sozin's Comet, Firebending Masters, Avatar and the Fire Lord, the Puppet Master for some people is a very impactful episode. That's, I think, what it manages to do well. But obviously, I think it is important as like a missed opportunity to highlight Nightmares and Daydreams. You obviously saw from my Avatar bottom 5 episode list, this was the bottom one. This for me is my least favorite episode of Avatar. The problem with this episode is that they kind of, it's the only episode in like the entire show that I feel wastes some of its time as an episode. This episode is like 22 minutes long, but I feel it wastes like 14 of those minutes on a plot that doesn't really mean a lot. The whole Aang becomes nervous before the big battle and freaks out. Everyone tries to comfort him and kind of make him feel more confident going in. That's a interesting thing to do just before the big battle. But it's all about the execution. This doesn't get it right. This is the same thing as the Korra section of Remembrances. It's just, in the end, an issue that comes up for one episode that is resolved by the Avatar's friend literally just saying, "You're fine. We're here for you. You did good. You will do good." And that's it. And for me, Avatar going down the friendship wins everything route just doesn't feel the best, because it always does stuff better than that. And also the fact that the episode spends so much of the episode time on this plot, whereas the subplot of this episode, Zuko with the war meeting and the fact that he wasn't invited, the Zuko and May moments in the lead up to that, and then when he is invited, and then him making his kind of big decision, his big reveal, but I wasn't me at that meeting. I was everything my father wanted me to be, but I wasn't me. Big reveal at the end, huge moment, but the fact that so much, 2/3 of the episode is that Aang section, really brings the episode down for me. So I definitely highlight Nightmares and Daydreams as a weaker aspect of Book 3, just because I do think it's probably the weakest episode of the series, kind of really overall, reflecting on it, just because it wastes so much time. Other stuff, I think a lot of people might expect me to highlight the opening few episodes of Book 3 as an issue. I see this highlighted a lot, that Book 3 is great, it's just that the first couple of episodes don't come across the best because they're just traveling around the Fire Nation and all this stuff happens, and I'm just kind of like, I don't really have an issue with that, because Book 2, the book that everyone always highlights as like their favorite, also like doesn't start off like crazy intense. Like, yes, the Avatar state is an important episode. You have Return to Omashu, but I think in general, Return to Omashu is not like highlighted as people's favorite episodes a lot of the time. I find the starts fairly comparable. Like with Book 3, we have the Awakening, the Headband, the Painted Lady, Sokka's Master, the Beach. With Book 2, it's like the Avatar state, the Cave of Two Lovers, Return to Omashu, the Swamp, and Avatar Day. I think they're fairly comparable sets of like 5 opening episodes. I don't think Book 2 is like miles better than the opening 5 episodes from Book 3. I think Book 3 actually has a more consistent kind of narrative to those 5 episodes, with the whole idea of Team Avatar is traveling the Fire Nation until, the time for the invasion comes. It gives Aang a chance to kind of be undercover, fully recover from his injury, gives the team a chance to kind of rest, kind of relax, and not just be like hunted the entire time, but also a chance to explore the nation that they are kind of opposing, and find out that what they're fighting against is not the nation as a whole. It's not every person from the Fire Nation. It's the Fire Nation military and the Fire Nation kind of leadership structure that they are opposing, and the impact that has on the people. The regular people of the Fire Nation are kept in the dark about what's really going on there. They are not the enemy, and that is what they kind of discover here. In the same way as Zuko, over the course of his journey in Book 2, comes to like appreciate like the impact that the Fire Nation is having on like Earth Kingdom citizens, and gains a better appreciation for like the kind of the simpler things in life. not all about the royalty. Team Avatar gains a big appreciation for the Fire Nation here and kind of understands that they are fighting just as much for the normal people of the Fire Nation as they are the other nations. Episodes like the headband and the way the children are taught at schools, the false history, the suppression of their creativity. That's why we don't see a lot of really fun characters in the Fire Nation, is because of the school kind of turns all of the kids into like kind of normal grown-ups that don't have a lot of creativity, whereas Aang comes across as like this super unique character when compared against the relatively boring characters in the Fire Nation school here. It's a great contrast within that episode. The Painted Lady highlights that the Fire Nation is to some extent hurting its own smaller towns and villages. The town on the Zhanghui River here is very affected by the pollution caused by basically Fire Nation industry that is making them so successful in war. That their success is coming at a cost to, nature, to the kind of the land that is the Fire Nation, and it's really affecting the normal people of the Fire Nation, that they're hurting themselves, that they, the soldiers in these various places hold medicine from these smaller towns, and that there is a decent amount of suffering, that this cruelty doesn't just apply to against the other nations, that it's the Fire Nation doing it to itself as well. And it also highlights their issues with spirituality, that the Fire Nation aren't very spiritual, reflecting back on Book 1 with Zhao, that they similarly here don't seem to care about, like, this is the Painted Lady's river, the one that she washes over, and it's only when Team Avatar tries to fix things here that becomes something that they do fix. Sokka's master, we see a member of the Order of the White Lotus who doesn't care about nations. He knew the entire time that Sokka was Water Tribe, but still thought him the Way of the Sword, because the Way of the Sword is not exclusive to the Fire Nation. And it's just a very interesting things over the course of these episodes. Even the beach is such an important episode to get a chance to kind of just get to know these characters who have primarily been villains as far as we've known them. Just getting a chance to, like, see Azula not in like a combat needing to manipulate like some sort of political situation to her advantage. Seeing May in a more casual situation, Ty Lee in a more casual situation, and just see how these kind of childhood friends as like a group interact and how they really feel at these kind of complicated teenage years. So there's some romance stuff, and it's the episode that I think really makes Azula feel very real as a character. I think without the beach, Azula is just this kind of villain character who's cruel, but this adds some slight vulnerabilities to her character that I really do appreciate, that like lead into her kind of mental down spiral that happens over the rest of the season. So I don't have a problem really with the opening half of Book 3. The 6th episode is the Avatar and the Fire Lord. That's a great episode. Like and that's another surprising thing about Book 3. It keeps so many like important things back until the last season. Like, it's only now that we kind of find out, oh, this is how the war actually started. Like, like 15 episodes from the end, we find out how it started. 5 episodes from the end, we finally find out like just why Katara's mother Kaya is so important to her. This whole idea of like the reason Katara's mother's not around anymore, why she's dead, is because she sacrificed herself to save her daughter. That her daughter was the last southern waterbender, and she said that Kaya said that she was to basically save her, but it got her killed. And Katara is alive because of her mother, and her waterbending kind of is so important. It's the thing that her mother helped to protect, and that's why she so kind of cares so much about becoming a master waterbender, fulfilling the potential of the power that she has, and so on. And plus the whole idea of like Katara and Zuko have kind of been the two kind of at the most odds with each other, I think, as kind of main characters go. They've had such issues with each other, the distrust between them when Zuko betrayed. She was the one most affected by that. And this is finally the episode when they kind of properly become friends here. That the whole idea of forgiveness within the Southern Raiders episode, how Aang kind of urges Katara to forgive the person who killed her mother, but she ends up forgiving Zuko. And the whole lesson of this idea, like, it's fine to not forgive someone if they've done something awful to you, but it's about like not taking revenge, not stooping to their level and becoming like them. That you cannot forgive someone, but you don't have to take revenge against them. And it's a really strong episode, as well. And just the importance of this 5 episodes from the end, really, really, really strong for me. But yeah, I think that's really it. Like I don't like book 2. I don't have a ton of issues with book 3. Given that I don't really think the first half of the season is weak at all, really, it really doesn't leave many kind of big things. As I said, it's just some little things with the finale, some slight lower quality episodes, you know, the likes of Nightmares and Daydreams and The Runaway for me. But there's still some great stuff in those episodes. As I said earlier on, those episodes are kind of episodes that would initially feel like kind of book 1 style episodes, but they're better than book 1 episodes because they do accomplish stuff that is important to the story, that they have that layer that perhaps the book 1 episodes didn't have, and it kind of highlights the strength of the series, how it was written as it progressed. But yeah, I really do think that's it coming to an end. I suppose I'll just end by kind of highlighting, like reflecting on it. Like I've done all of these missed opportunities videos. I think doing it this way has really highlighted this idea that with Korra, for the most part, each of the books had like a key thing, like a fairly important thing that I had kind of issue with. With like Korra book 4, Korra book 3, you know, it's missed opportunities with the villains that could have made them amazing. With book 2, it's, you know, the kind of like that second quarter of the series, you know, just before you transition into the good stuff, where they kind of slightly mishandle the kind of side plot. But in general, I like book 2. Book 1, super solid, but they just couldn't quite fit everything in right at the end. It just ran out of episodes at the end. And then you come to Avatar, and like book 1 is probably the one where like there's the most like issues with. There's the most clear issues for like why I would highlight like book 1 of Avatar as probably being the weakest book of like Avatar and Korra together. Whereas like book 2 and 3 of Avatar, as you saw from these videos, I didn't really have a ton of issues with them. There wasn't anything I brought up wasn't super big. It was like they could have perfected the placement of these episodes. They could have slightly finished that character arc. Nothing so big like the villain didn't work. They hugely missed an opportunity to present flashback here, or like thematically this went wrong here, or a whole plot point just didn't work. There was no big ones for book 2 and 3. So that's why I think I rate them so highly, and kind of why overall I for me personally, like I find Avatar to be, you know, a slightly higher quality show than Avatar, but only slightly, because I still love Korra so much, as I've highlighted with the kind of positives I've presented in those videos. But yeah, I'm going to bring the Missed Opportunity series to an end here and just ask for, once again, your thoughts on Book 3 of Avatar. What do you think are the missed opportunities with Book 3? Do you agree with what I've said, disagree, or do you have other missed opportunities that perhaps I missed, didn't think about in the making of this video? Definitely give your thoughts on that, and I suppose also your thoughts just reflecting on the fact that if you've watched all of these missed opportunities videos, like, has it kind of changed how you feel about the books and stuff like that? But yeah, I'm pretty much going to end it there, and just by once again saying, next week will be my top 5 Korra episodes list, followed by my Avatar top 5 my top 5 Avatar The Last Airbender episode list, and as I say, we'll get back into the more regular Avatar weekly discussion topic videos after that. So I'll end by saying, if you want to follow me on social media, links to my Twitter and Tumblr are in the description. If you want to help support my channel so I can make more videos, better videos, links to my Patreon campaign and my PayPal donation link are in the description also. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.